Are you? There
Yeah, I told you I was pressing the button. You're
you
totally surprised. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone who is with us today. Welcome. It is, what is it, Monday,
Monday.
June 12th.
Yeah.
You know, I was saddened yesterday thinking
Fine.
about the fact that it's going to be June 21st soon.
Ugh. You rushing it?
Well, listen, no, the problem is that after that, the days start getting shorter.
I know.
Right? Like that's
It's
the
true.
peak, and they start getting shorter. I know we don't feel it for a while, but still, I love it when
No,
it.
it is nice.
I love
Yesterday,
it.
8:30, there was a glaze in the sky where
Always be that.
sun still wasn't gone. It was really pretty.
And I got to tell you, there are some places where it gets dark later than here, considerably later. Like if you're to the north, so
Uh-huh.
let's say people in Minnesota, but also if you're to the west, so you're like at the kind of at the end of where the times change. it,
Right?
it gets darker much later. So that's why Florida, even though it's to the south of us, like if you're on the west coast of Florida, it gets dark pretty late.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Definitely
that.
changes the tone.
It definitely changes the tone. I love these summer evenings. It's fantastic. But let us get started today because we're
Okay.
not here to talk about summer evenings. We are here to talk about some important stuff, substance wise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, first of all, I want to announce this. Our ebook, our Keeping It Off ebook, is out. It is available, and it is. I said I'm not going to be humble about it. It's really, really good. I wrote it. I put my heart into it. There's a lot of data in there. There's a lot of knowledge, but it's interesting as well. At least I like to think so, because part of it is in a kind of a narrative format.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very valuable resource for people. Everyone says
Absolutely.
that they want to keep it off. They need to learn how to keep the weight off. This is the resource everyone wants and frankly needs. And I want to make
Absolutely.
sure that we get that out to people, that people
Mm-hmm.
understand that it is here now. One of the things that I say in it is I talk about some of what we're up against. And I think it's always a very valuable exercise to get an understanding of what we're against here because it is not easy. We've talked about this time and time again. It is not easy to take weight off, to keep weight off in today's world, in the United States, in 2023. The problem is that we are dealing with a lot of pressures. This is a world of pressures.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many pressures that are pushing us towards lack of health, towards being heavy. And the one that you brought up today, that's our actual subject,
Mm-hmm.
is portion sizes.
Correct.
Jackie, why did you want to talk about that today?
It's funny. So just being busy in general, you go out to eat, depending on where you go out to eat. Portion control is different in the eyes of everyone. So it's a matter of what looks pretty on a plate, the best bang for your buck, what's healthy. There's so many factors that go into portion control outside of your home. It's mind blowing to me. And then in the same sense, if you're trying to get healthy, lose weight, whatever your health journey looks like, when you start discussing portion control, it's almost like it's insulting. It's like, oh, portion control. That means it's small. I'm gonna be starving. It's going to taste bad. It immediately has a terrible description in your mind. So you're already setting yourself up that this is going to be the worst thing in the world. And it's funny to me because that's really not the case whatsoever. It's a matter of what your body needs and how much you should be giving it to get to your goals.
Well, you bring up this idea of association, right? We have
Yes.
this immediate association with what it means,
Mm-hmm.
and it may not mean that, but what comes to your mind when you hear the words portion control?
Structure.
Okay,
Structure.
explain.
That's exactly what I think. That's the first thing that I think of is structure. Portion control means there's a plan and there should be a set amount for each group, each food group that I should
Okay,
be consuming. Just it's very simple.
got it. All right. what do you think? You mentioned a lot of the factors about portion control. Here, so many things come to mind for me when we talk
Yes.
about portion control. I mean, I'm going back to my grandmother and how she would fill up the plate, and I had to be part of the clean plate club.
Yes.
She was insulted if I didn't finish. I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking of
Mm-hmm.
a client of ours who has a really good restaurant. I think it's in Wall. I
Mm-hmm.
went there one time, and the plate was like packed. And
Right.
the plate seemed like it weighed 15 pounds.
Right.
And I joked with him. I said, "Is this all?"
Yes, is
And we
it?
talked about it afterwards, and he said, "That's what people need these days to think that they're getting a good value."
Well, that's exactly it. It's the best in the bang for your buck. And it's funny that something so simple, portion control, can have so many meanings to everyone.
Was it always like this? I'm trying to wonder. Jackie, I'm a little older than you,
Just a bit.
and yeah,
Just a little
just
bit.
a little bit. And I'm trying to think back if it was always like this. I'm not sure. I mean, some years ago, we became aware of this problem of portion control when it comes to restaurants because there was that movie that came out, right? Super Size.
Mm-hmm. Super
And
size.
yeah, and like portions, I think they've gotten larger, but I'm really not sure.
Well, it's also what's being thrown into them. That's a whole nother subject. But if you ever consider chain restaurants for the most part, anything that's associated with a larger plate or its value, greater value. It's always greater value, best value. It's everything that they're giving you the most value for what you're spending, and you're still keeping it affordable for your family.
That's right. I've often been flummoxed by some restaurants. Like you go to a restaurant and they give you like this much pasta or right or whatever.
That was my next thing.
And
Yeah.
in my head, it's like, okay, it would cost you literally a nickel more
Mm-hmm.
to give a larger portion. You could charge $3 more.
Yeah.
But why would you do that? And so I feel like it's chintzy sometimes if you go to a restaurant and you're getting small portions.
So it's funny if you go to a high-end restaurant or something, it's local eats, and it's definitely the on-trend place to be. Sometimes the portions happen to be smaller. But it's also, is that exactly what we need, or is that what we want, or is it just a taste, or is it the whole scene in
Well,
general?
I'm
Like,
okay with that if it's part of a tasting menu. But
yeah,
again, this is not where we're eating for the most part. We're not eating at French Laundry, General
this is true.
or something like
It's true.
that. Yes. So we're expecting value, which means portion sizes. We want to leave restaurants. We want to feel full. We don't want to leave wanting for more.
Starving. Correct.
I went to a wedding a couple of years ago, and certain people, they may or may not be family members of mine, were complaining about the portion sizes at the wedding. And I was like, who cares? You should have been on the floor dancing.
Right. Well, that's different. Correct.
What's different about it? What was I missing?
Well, not you, but them. But I'm saying that's different. It's correct. So when you're at a wedding, I mean, everyone's getting the same of three options essentially of whatever it is. Are you going for the food, or are you going for the party?
Me personally, the party.
I'll go for the party.
In order, this is what matters at a wedding, Jackie.
Music,
The crowd and the band.
the band, and that was actually three. And the food. They always say it. If your food is bad, your music is bad, your party sucks.
No. At a wedding, I could care less. Listen. I want it to be good food. It's a bonus if it's good food. Last wedding I went to, the food was exceptional, but that's a bonus because that's not where the focus is. The focus is it's about the feel. It's about the emotion in the air. That's
Totally.
to me. That's what a wedding is about. Right?
Of course.
Energy, and the food just gets in the way of the booze anyway.
Agreed. We'll talk about those calories another time.
It's diluting it. I mean, who needs that?
Don't get in the way.
So when it comes to portion sizes, Jackie, what would you want to see? Because we know it's better for us. Don't answer it right away. Let me complete my question. You're very fast, Jackie.
I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
All right.
My coffee.
Because we know what's best for us. We know it's best for us to have human-sized portions, right? Take Human Bites. Remember there was
Human Bites. I say it all the time.
Yeah. So we know that's what's best for us. That's what would be ideal, but our eyes get so big and we just assume that more is always better.
True, true. And I feel like it's come to a point where, I mean, not so much now as I've gotten older and I really realize those things, like what I'm putting on my plate and choices, what I eat first on my plate. Growing up, and I'm still this person, I mix on my plate. Like my husband comes from a very old school household and they eat things in sessions essentially. Like they don't necessarily put everything on their plate at once. Sometimes they do. But my husband, if he's eating his meat, he'll finish it, then put his potatoes on his plate. Like he doesn't like the mixing. Myself, if growing up, if I have potatoes, meat, vegetable on the plate, let's say, I always eat my vegetables first. So there's also a system to it where
You have an order because you're saving the best for last. Is that the idea?
well,
You
yes,
have to
I
eat
also
vegetables.
think that I also think because you always have to finish your vegetables, right? Like you have to eat your vegetables.
Yeah.
So if there's 3 on my plate or half of my plate, I feel like I have to have those first. They have to be completed.
Yeah.
So, and I notice I catch myself that if there's like a starchy something on the plate, I'm like, I could be so full at that point. It doesn't slow me down. And I'm like, oh, I got to eat those potatoes. Like I can't, I have to eat them. So portion wise, I would sometimes rather have only what my serving should be because I will just I'll eat everything that's
I
there.
know. Listen, this is getting into so much interesting stuff, right? Because there's so much that's involved with eating, so many games
Yes.
we play with ourselves
Mhm.
about what we're eating first and why. Like you might eat something last because that's the last taste you want to have, or you're
Oh,
saving the best for last, or
true.
you might eat something first because you want to get it out of the way. You know you're supposed to eat it,
Like I
or
know I have my vegetable.
yeah, or have you ever eaten a lot of something just because you like the crunch or
Yeah.
the mouth feel, right? So
Yeah.
you just keep on eating it
Yes.
and get that. What does that have to do with anything? That's
Nothing.
not satiating in and of itself.
Nothing. But it's true. Like it really is a mental thing. It's not even what my stomach is feeling. Am I feeling hungry? Am I feeling full? Satisfied? Is this just enough? Did I just want to taste? I feel like it almost becomes a gray area. Like you just don't even know. You can't tell them apart.
Right, but to get back to my question though, what do you want to see portion sizes if this is not if you're cooking, if you go out to eat? Do you want to see normal size portions? Do you want to see healthy portions? Or do you want an abundance because you're paying?
I think it depends on where I'm eating.
Okay, so a higher end place, you're okay with whatever. So you'll take shit from the high end place
Well, it's not
because
gonna be
it's a high
shit.
end place, right? But a crap place, you want more of the crap.
Well, it's like if I'm in the mood for French fries, do not put 3 French fries on my plate. I'll be insulted.
Understood.
Don't do it. But if it's like truffle pasta, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll take like a bite because I know how rich it is. It's very like it's heavy. It's something that I don't know. It's just a funny thing. It's a funny thing like that. But if it's true, if it's a burger and fries, just double those fries.
We won't go back to restaurant. This restaurateur was right. We will not go back to restaurants if we feel that they chinsed out on us.
Agreed.
Why? But
Mhm.
it should be about the quality, shouldn't it?
It should be, but I think we've become so used to it. Everything has to be to the 10th degree. Everything has to be in abundance. More it just always seems to be better for everyone on every level, it seems like.
Or
I don't feel like anybody ever had, the concept of less is more. I don't think anyone believes it.
no, nobody believes that. Certainly not these days. But again, I don't know what it was like in the 1950s. I know that
Right.
portion sizes have gotten larger, but I don't know I don't know if there was ever like a rational portion size, if there was an
That's
understanding.
also the era of the TV dinners. When TV dinners were starting, right? When did those start? When did TV dinners start?
Before me, Jay.
I know before
Probably
you.
in the 50s.
But those are sectioned, portioned off
They are, it's true.
plates. So if you look at what that plate, what was it? It would be like, and it's funny because if you look at it, actually, I remember seeing like an old box of one, just like on a meme or something like that online, and their portion of mixed vegetables is so small.
Yes.
Like mixed vegetables on those plates were never the larger portion of those
No,
containers.
no, no, no. It was the turkey with the stuffing. I mean, that was the
Yeah, it was
largest
like
portion.
loaded. It would be like, maybe one scoop of like a potato or whatever it was, a small scoop of vegetables, a spot for like a brownie or a cookie, whatever was there, a little
But
square.
it was still moderate though. Like it wasn't. I'm gonna. Is it the case that over the years, TV dinners? I haven't had a TV dinner in a while. Have they gotten larger? Are they still a thing? First of all,
Honestly, I mean, I'm sure they are.
they have to be around.
They have frozen meals. I mean, we don't eat them, so I don't know. But I have to look next time. I'm sure I couldn't imagine. I know I've seen like in passing, and I was surprised to actually see it. Hungry Man
Right.
was one of them, which made me laugh because I'm like, that's not a Hungry Man meal. Like,
Who eats TV dinners? If you're out there, if you're eating TV dinners, then let me know because I am really
I'm gonna look it up.
interested in this. Yeah, what is happening in the world of TV dinners these days? How large are the plates? Are they larger than they used to be? Are the portion sizes considerably larger? This is a problem. Portion size.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
The first thing as I type in our TV dinners, first thing that comes up, bad for you.
Well, I know that. You don't have to tell us that. Yes, but they were good for moms though, who just wanted to shut their kids up and have something easy, right? Just
Discontinued news. What are TV dinners called now? A frozen meal. See, we've upgraded.
okay. You know what I want to talk about now? I want to
Tell
talk about buffets, Jackie. All right.
What is
What's your experience? When was the last time you went to a buffet, and how did you behave?
Buffet. I mean, we're not real big buffet people. I'm trying to think when's the last time we went to buffet. Oh, well, it's not the same. But buffet was Harold's.
Harold's Deli.
Yes.
They have a salad bar.
They have a salad bar. It's the closest to a buffet that I've been.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But it's moved with Harold's because the sandwiches are so big. If you had a sandwich,
A
then it
cake.
doesn't matter. They're
A
like,
slice of cake is a whole cake.
that's their thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their thing. So they're just asinine. There are places like that's their thing.
It's extreme.
They're cartoonish, the portions,
Yeah.
right? So that doesn't really count. What I want to know is the last time you went to an actual buffet, how did you behave? What are your thoughts about buffets? Do you like them?
No.
Because you get to go back and forth. Do you dislike them because you feel the need to go back and forth and you overeat?
Okay, this is gonna sound so bad. It's really gonna sound terrible. We're not buffet people. We kind of skeeve the idea of a buffet. We don't like.
Oh, okay. You're like germaphobes and whatever.
We're not buffet. If there's like, we actually went to. It was very, very nice. My son and daughter's their banquet for their awards dinner, and it was really nice. Obviously, a tremendous amount of people, and in a short amount of time, it's very hard for you to have a sit down meal. In a 2-hour span for 500 people, it's a lot. But it was beautifully run. Everything was nice, and the food is very good. But it was a buffet, and me and my husband were like, it's too much work for us to go over there. We actually had dinner after. We all went to dinner after, so we actually never
You're
even.
not a good one to ask this question.
Yeah,
Please tell me that you didn't bring some kind of a spray cleaner for the buffet just in case.
no, not at all. We enjoyed drinks. My kids had a really good snack right before we went, and they were too busy, honestly, like you or me, dancing. As soon as they started playing that music, they were up with their friends dancing the entire time. As soon as the party was over, they were like, all right, let's just go eat at home. They did not miss it. They didn't even miss it.
Right. So you don't like a good Sunday brunch cafe if you're staying in a hotel resort or something like that?
Not really.
It's just not for you. So you're a bad one to ask. I can think there's a couple of things come to mind with me. I once went to a buffet. I was away with my family. We were at a hotel. They had a phenomenal buffet and it was very expensive.
Okay.
Right? I think I wore a path in the carpet. I went back and forth from my table to the buffet so many times. It was really sickening. I think a normal at the time I was heavier. I was over 300 pounds. I think a normal sized person would have died.
Oh my God.
I think they would have had to be taken to the hospital. They would have blown up, kind of like Violet Beauregard in
yeah, exactly. In Willy Wonka.
That's what would have happened. I think they ended up sending Violet to the juice room, right? I would have been sent. I should have been sent to the juice room. So that was a horrible display of gluttony. My father hated buffets for that reason.
Because you can't help yourself?
It's all about your mental considerations, right? First of all, it's an abundance, so there is a temptation. Now, I've been to buffets where I've behaved as well, but uh, that's where I was at the time.
Right.
And then there's also about the expenditure of it, and there's all these things that come into play, and there's about how good the food is and wanting to taste it all, right?
You know what it is? I think there's a part of me, and it's funny because I guess I never really thought about it like this, but we've been to places where there is, a buffet is always there. It's like part of your meal or an option or something like that. And not even so much that it's like gross, like, ugh, it's not my thing. It's more along the lines of you're now on display. You're going and making your plate.
You won't go back several times because you think people are
Like,
looking, they're tracking, they're
I
counting.
I feel like if you think about it, it's like, oh wow, that was really good bread. Am I really going back 3 times for more bread? It's almost embarrassing. It's like, how many times did you get up?
Honestly, I've had the same thought. Yes,
Like,
I do.
I think that's part of it too, because I feel like on some levels, not all buffets are the best quality choices. Like I can't say I wouldn't be probably going up for 3 servings of a salad. I'm probably going up for something else, And it's like, oh gosh, am I out eating my husband and my children and my friends? Am I like it's kind of
You're walking past the same people each time, and they're
I
like,
know.
are they saying, "Look at this person"? Like, they just let out of the house for the first time. Like, what's going on? Why are they here? Are
Right.
you blocking other people from going? Honestly, that might be the one factor that makes people somewhat behave at buffets.
Hmm.
You're getting a new plate each time. You on the table, you have 5 plates.
I know. And if they don't clear it right away, that whole thing,
That's right.
it's like,
Yes,
yeah, I'll put on my same plate.
I do get that. The last buffet I was at, that was a consideration. I wasn't terribly hungry anyway, but it was a consideration. Like,
Yeah,
how many
you
times?
really made me jog my memory because I remember, and now that I'm remembering it, there was a place when I was in college. We went to, it was a Chinese food buffet, but the place was tremendous, huge. And the turnaround in this place was, jam packed from brunch essentially, right? So we're talking like an 11 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night, revolving door. Food was always fresh. It was always, they turned it around very quickly. And late nights in between, like we were studying, we want to go there, we were hungry, and you're in college, you're just kind of like free living here, eating everything in sight. And I remember it was like a dumpling, and then they had like a sushi station, and it was just, an all you could eat, and it was super fresh. And I remember then kind of having, I guess, a little bit of like, okay, am I am I eating too much? But there was no filter. It was like, nope, nope, just go up, load up that plate. There were
This is
people
in
up to
college. This buffet was always available.
It was no, it was right by my college where I went.
Oh,
So
okay,
it was in part, but it was always open. It
got
was
it.
always open. I remember it would be just as busy 11 a.m. in the morning driving by, 9 o'clock at night, 10
Yeah,
o'clock at night.
that's a dangerous place for a college student.
Oh yeah, it's part. Like, they were geniuses. So super smart.
Yeah, no, that's not a good idea. All right, one thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about what it is besides those factors, right? The mental computations, the get while the getting's good, or I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
miss out on not having everything, or I
Right.
paid X amount and I have to get my money's worth. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's also a physiological component. Physiological means like the functions of the physical body, right? There is there is a hormone that tells us when we're satiated,
Mm-hmm.
when we've had enough. Unfortunately, because largely due to these social and mental influences, that hormone kind of we don't sense it anymore. Like we don't know when we're satiated, so
No,
we'll keep eating regardless.
I think
This
it's
is
a
the problem.
yeah. A lot of it too, Dr. R. I feel, even when I sit with my kids, they know they're hungry. That they're both athletes, and they're starving. I know they're burning a ton of calories. I expect them to be hungry.
Yeah.
The first
It
I'm
doesn't matter
starving.
for them. The way they burn, it doesn't matter. They
It
can.
doesn't matter for them, correct? And then we sit down to a meal, and then sometimes they're so hungry, they eat so quickly. Their body is not. You're not even giving them. It's
Right.
not giving them a chance to realize. And then almost within an instant, it's like, "Mom, my belly hurts. I'm really full."
Yeah,
And it's because it just happens so quickly. They're not even giving themselves a chance to take it all in.
sure.
And that happens often also. And then, within an hour or so, it's like, okay, I want a little something. They're not sure what it is, but
And
they
it's always
can't
your kids with such animals.
my kids, when they're starving, they eat. I mean, yesterday there was a really big, sports weekend for us. So we had 2 long days of a swim meet for both of them, and then followed by baseball. So in between eating, I'm trying to keep like healthy snacks that were there. But when they came home yesterday for dinner, it was kind of like they didn't know what they wanted to eat first.
Yeah.
They were just hungry. They were just so hungry. And I made them food. So it was, chicken parm, and then they had pasta and like all the best version that I can give them. Then it was like, all right, I'll have carrots. I'll also have cucumbers. Then they had a half a banana. And I'm like, okay, slow down. It's like, just slow down. The food, if it wasn't nailed down, it was going in. I'm like, just calm down. And then literally within an hour later, they're like, my belly hurts. I'm like, yeah, you kind of ate
I
such a
think
boy.
that's a good piece of advice also. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously the first thing is we should have an idea of the portions that we want to have for any particular
totally.
meal. Now, if you're away, if you're at a resort, if you want to have more, fine, but confine it to 2 plates.
Yeah,
Don't do 6 plates.
right,
So that's one thing. But the other thing is if we just slow down when we're eating,
right.
that the animal part of it might go away after a while. Like
It's
we might
true.
get in touch. And a lot of people talk about eating mindfully also. How often do we have our attention or on our food when we're eating? More people than not are eating on the run. They're eating in front of the
Yes.
television. They're eating and yapping with their families. I mean, but how often are we just paying attention to the food?
I think there's a couple of factors there. So one, this can go either way. So I do notice even for myself, especially as we go out, we're older with couples, depending on if we're with our children, if we know we have somewhere to be. If we're going out casually, for example, a date night, and it's just adults, and we're sitting there and we're all talking and we're engaging, and maybe we're having a few drinks in between because we're social drinkers. We're not like we're not heavy drinkers. So for me, if I'm eating a meal, I can sip wine throughout, but I can't drink heavy or superly heavy mixed drinks while I'm eating a heavy meal. They just don't go. So it's like, well, I drink water in between, and we mix and we talk, and we'll sit there, and all of a sudden it's a second course, and maybe I didn't finish what I was eating. That also is a factor too, because I'm really engaging in the experience.
Well, the problem there is that per minute you're eating less in a situation like
Totally.
that. But if you're sitting at the table for 2 3 hours,
Oh,
and ultimately you might end up eating as much, even though it was over
over
a
time.
minute at a time, right?
Correct.
And that's the problem. I mean, you've had these days, I'm sure, where the food is out and everyone is just sitting there in front of the food, and so you're grabbing here, you're grabbing there.
You're not even realizing what you're touching.
It's an all day meal.
Correct.
Right. So you could eat just as much. It just seems better
Mm-hmm.
because you're doing it over a longer period of time.
Correct. Exactly. That's true too. But I do notice, depending on the setting we're in. So, we were in the swim meet, and we were in Princeton on Saturday, and then went to this good place afterwards, like kind of like a burger pub style place. And we all had like a chicken sandwich. Came out, I was like, oh, this looks great. I mean, it was huge. I was so full. I ended up not eating the rest of the day at all.
I'll tell you the best move, Jackie. And I go back and forth on this because there are certain things that men don't do. We don't ask for directions.
One.
We don't take things back when we buy
Agreed.
it, right? And very often we just won't take doggy bags.
True. Oh, true. Yeah, no.
But the best move is if you go to one of these places and you order something and it's gigantic, is just to cut it in half and ask for, right?
Okay,
You
so
do it. John probably won't, but you will.
you know what? I'll tell you what it is. If we're going out to dinner and it's I don't even know if this is good or bad. For the kids, if I know it's something that they didn't finish, and for the most part, my kids are really good eaters. They'll finish. But there are certain things we absolutely just won't take home because it wouldn't be nice to reheat it. And my husband doesn't like leftovers. So leftovers has to be, I know.
I feel like your mother-in-law ruined him.
It was just so used to it. I'm like, it's funny we say all the time, like, oh, leftovers. Our leftovers are very basic leftovers. We're talking like pasta, chicken cutlets, things that you don't really have to eat, reheat again. But if we go out to eat certain things, like especially if it's something, anytime we go out to eat in general, I should say, it's not home cooked, super fresh. So you know you're eating maybe mixed oils, things that you shouldn't be having. Maybe it's not always the healthiest version, very rich or decadent foods or unhealthy fast food. We kind of we don't want the pressure to feel like, oh, I'll eat it again a second time. We'd much rather.
Where's this pressure coming from?
Because if I take the leftover home, I'd rather enjoy it in that one sitting, whether I finish it or not. I don't want to come home and do that again because I know I'm going to kind of spiral out and eat something unhealthy.
Listen, okay, you're assuming you're having something unhealthy when you're out.
But, Dina agrees with us.
Right. So I understand what you're saying. If you don't want to have something unhealthy, then don't take it home. Even though you're just probably gonna just eat the whole thing then anyway. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But let's say you're out, you've ordered something decent, and it is a very large portion. It does make a lot more sense to do that right away from the beginning. Like portion control is something that should be done from the beginning. You don't want to decide 45 minutes into eating, 45 minutes eating straight, that maybe you should take a little and put it aside and take it with you.
Quarter your plate then. As soon as it comes out.
Yeah, taking it with you makes sense. You know what? Ordering and splitting a meal, it makes sense.
Absolutely.
I remember years ago, I was dating this gal, and whenever we would go out to eat, I would end up eating her whole thing because she ate like a bird. She would have 2 bites, and I would end up having like a meal and 3/4 every time. But it had to finish it. But the move would have been to take.
That's supposed to be your grandmother.
Yeah, listen, don't speak ill of the dead. Okay, we're gonna have a problem.
Did it. That clean plate cup.
Just like your mother-in-law ruined John, my grandmother ruined me.
She did. Listen, when my mother-in-law comes over, and I'm like, oh, what'd you bring now? I'm afraid because I like to blame my weight gain anytime it happens on her.
Mother.
My mom even gets in on that too, by the way.
Yeah, it's very convenient to do that, and it's true in large part. But to bring this full circle, we started out talking about the new book that we have, Keeping It Off. It's really terrific. I do talk about Grandma Ray. Yeah. I do discuss Grandma Rachel. Yes, she was a very important influence, and in this case, in sort of a negative way. But that's another story. Sorry, Grandma.
Sorry, Grandma Ray.
Okay, so let's end off here on Grandma Ray. It's always a good place to end off.
Well, just a little bit of advice. Obviously,
so much for my ending off.
So much for ending off. We have to end off with a little bit more advice.
Okay.
It's definitely quarter your plates. Leftovers are not a terrible thing.
No.
And the truth is, if we could bring it back to structure, I mean, portion control for us, and which is something we should even talk about in depth more, is what our plates really should look like. So when they do the food planning, food prep is a really big deal. And I know it seems like it's the cool thing right now when you look online and social media, these ASMR videos and just these clicking through and saving things. But it's true. Having that structure also gives you a sense of control. So
for you control freaks out there. Well, listen, now I have more things to talk about now that you brought this up, because we try to help people with all of their challenges. Portion control is a challenge going forward. It will be a challenge.
Always.
One of the things that we do with our clients is they have the option of purchasing these portion control containers that we have. So that's a very nice tool.
It's a great tool.
As far as I know, no one's brought that to a restaurant yet.
Yeah.
But there is another thing I want to say. So if we're going to structure our plate perfectly, I think what's ideal is this: the majority of it, half the plate being vegetables. Correct. Right? Green leafies, for the most part, we don't have to worry about eating those too much.
Correct.
We want moderate protein portions, right? The reason is, most people don't know this, protein in excess can turn into sugar.
Mm-hmm.
The body has the ability to make sugar out of protein. There's a big word for it. It's called gluconeogenesis. Gluco means sugar, neo means new, genesis is create. So it's creating new sugar, and that can happen from excess protein portions. So in real life, 6-7 ounces. And then also we generally want some good healthy fat. When you're out at a restaurant, for the most part, you're not getting healthy fat. Maybe, depending on the restaurant, if you drizzle some olive oil.
Make sure it's good olive oil.
Make sure, that's what I'm saying. That's why.
Not a blend.
Yeah. And carb portions should be relatively modest. So that's really what I want to say. It's the opposite of the way we do things in America. The first thing that happens is they give us bread. So we're numbing on the bread. Then we have butter, which is not organic butter. It's not grass-fed, right? So what we're doing is we're just getting like a conglomeration of all those toxins intensified. So this is the first two things we're having. And then we first order. So there's a lot of problems with going out, but we should always try to structure our plates.
Absolutely.
Okay. So on that note, shall we go?
We can go now.
Okay, good. Thank you. We'll see everyone.
Happy eating.
Bye.
Bye, guys.